Rome wasn't built on courage alone, my friend. It was built on debt. We like to picture the Roman legions as brave soldiers, honorable warriors. But behind the scenes, there is a logistical beast at work, feeding, clothing, arming, and moving thousands of soldiers. That's no small task. Horses needed feed, siege engines needed wood, soldiers wanted their pay. Everything cost money, and a lot of it. So, how did Rome afford all these wars? And why should we care today? Because Rome's economy wasn't just connected to war, it depended on it. War wasn't only fought on the battlefield, it was written into the economy itself. At first things were simple. During the Republic, the army was made up of citizens. If you owned land, you were drafted. You brought your own weapons, fought the campaign, and went back home to farm afterward. But as the empire grew, wars lasted longer and stretched farther from home. You couldn't just grab a spear and say, "I'll be back in a year." The age of the professional soldier had begun. The state started paying small stipends to its soldiers. That was the first step in buying loyalty. Then everything changed. Conquest became a business model. Every new territory meant new taxes, new slaves, new plunder, new income. A cycle began. War financed more war. But eventually, the money started to run out. Rome leaned not only on taxes, but also on debt. Long wars, massive expenses, especially the Punic Wars against Carthage, forced the Republic to borrow heavily from the wealthy elite, the equites, Rome's banker class. And these weren't patriotic loans, they were investments. In return, lenders expected interest, tax collection rights, and trade monopolies. War literally became a profit vehicle. The more profitable it was, the more wars Rome started. Sound familiar? Over time, this militarized economy reshaped everything. Political power shifted to generals who could promise spoils. Senators took their cut from wars. Private contractors, the publicani, handled logistics and tax collection, skimming fortunes off the top. In short, the first version of the military-industrial complex was born in Rome. But the cost was heavy. To pay soldiers and creditors, the treasury was constantly hunting for new money. When revenue ran dry, Rome turned to an old trick: currency debasement. Under Nero, the silver content of coins was quietly reduced. Within 2 centuries, the denarius was little more than a piece of cheap metal. The result? Inflation, loss of trust, and collapse. And the rich? They got richer. They moved their wealth into land, slaves, and foreign holdings. The poor paid taxes in worthless coins, while the elite claimed exemptions. Public services fell apart. Corruption flourished, and the burden fell squarely on the lower classes. Rome didn't just collapse militarily, it collapsed economically. Now fast forward to today. Governments drowning in debt, wars financed by borrowing, central banks printing money, defense companies and financiers getting richer. And the only way to keep the system alive? Constant growth. It's not exactly Rome, but the DNA feels familiar, doesn't it? Rome teaches us this: if an economy is built only on expansion, especially violent expansion, collapse is inevitable. You eventually run out of land to conquer, resources to exploit, and enemies to fight. But the debt stays. The expectations stay. And when that happens, the state turns inward and starts squeezing its own people. Just like Rome, more taxes, more money printing, more control, bread and circuses for the masses, luxury and safety for the elites. Sound familiar? Today, we don't call it tribute. We call it taxation, stimulus, monetary policy. But the mechanism is the same. The state prints money, the rich buy assets, The poor get crushed by inflation. Rome's war loans are today's defense budgets. The denarius, losing its value is today's inflation chart. War is still funded through debt. The winners are the same. So are the ones who pay. Eventually, the system loops in on itself. Debt becomes the default. Printing money stops being a crisis tool and becomes a stall tactic, and everyone keeps pretending things are fine until they're not. That's why history matters. Because these stories aren't just the past, they're warning signs. Rome gave too much power to private finance, became addicted to expansion, debased its money, and crushed its own citizens. Not out of malice, but because the system had no off switch. Today's empire looks different, digital, global, powered by capital. But the game, still the same. Money and power move together. War is still profitable. Inflation still punishes the weak. And fake stability still works. Until it doesn't. So, what can we do? Open your eyes. See the pattern. Most people don't. They think inflation is natural. Debt is freedom. Growth can last forever. But the Stoics had a word for that: delusion. You can't fully escape the chase